Hey guys, welcome back to episode 20 of Two Girls, One Crime. We are officially in our 20s, y'all, even though we're actually already in our 20s.
Yeah. Our podcast baby's in its 20s.
In its 20s. I am Megan, one of your hosts, and this is, of course, we all already know who she is. Emily Holman.
Thank you for the intro.
Yeah, of course. I always love doing the intros because that was probably my most normal intro in a very long,
It was.
but
I
who knows?
appreciate the love though.
Yes, of course. Gotta give her the respect she deserves. As we had teased last week, we are going to be talking about a case that has been very, very prevalent in the media, on TikTok. It is not only in Emily's hometown of Boston, but it is also deeply connected to my field that I have outside of here. So we thought this would be a fun one to talk about, and it is the Lindsay Clancy case. There are a couple things to just note before we go into this, and we will continue to talk about this for sure, but we're going to give updates on this case throughout the week because it is something current. There's so much coming out every single day about it, and on top of that, there are a lot of just questions right now about this case, so over time we'll address those. So right now this episode is going to be focused on what this case is about, who's involved, all those things, and there is so much information, so this is probably like a quarter of what has been talked about in this trial.
Yeah, and like Megan said, we're gonna kind of give little updates. Like even when I started researching for this, and now there's already been so much new information. So we're definitely gonna collect things that happen each week and then add a little bit at the end of our next few episodes. So we're gonna start a little bit with background. We're gonna talk about like who is Lindsay Clancy and her family, and then talk about some mental health history, which of course Megan will focus
my
on.
favorite my favorite topic of my entire life.
Exactly. So, who is Lindsay Clancy? She is from Wallingford, Connecticut, which is super small. I've honestly never heard of it before. She was born on August 11th of 1990. She, like I said, born and raised in Wallingford. Her parents actually still live there, and all of the neighbors around them said that like this family, they were just like full of good people. Yeah. So she went to Quinnipiac, also in Connecticut, and she attended nursing program at Mass General in Boston, worked in labor and delivery for 9 years. In December of 2016, she married Patrick Clancy, who she had 3 children with, Cora, Dawson, and Callan. Cora was born in December of 2017, Dawson was born in September of 2019, and Callan was born in May of 2022, and they all lived in Duxbury, Massachusetts. Patrick's mom, Susan, said that Lindsay was a super fun-loving wife and mother. So, like, everybody has really good things to say about her. She is on trial currently for the strangulation deaths of her 3 children. She pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, which we're definitely going to talk a lot about. But honestly, there wasn't, like, a ton about her background, really just, like, where she's from and kind of her now. Obviously, since she's, more in the media now, so...
Yeah, and I would say there's definitely more so rather than with a lot of our cases where they go into history of what their childhood was like, if there was any sexual abuse, anything like that. This is more so focused on her current and I would say in the last 10 years, her mental health history is where this case really sits compared to, which is something fun. That's very different from a lot of the other cases we've talked about.
100%.
But to get started with a couple mental health things before she committed these murders, she had Cora and Dawson and started to experience postpartum anxiety, which pretty much what that is really worrying about kind of everything that's going on in your day to day, and it's extreme amounts of anxiety. Sometimes with postpartum anxiety, it can also look like worrying about the children or worrying about how they're doing, having fears that maybe something's going to happen to them. And it's just being really hyper anxious. So that was something she discussed experiencing for her first two, after her first 2 births. There's notes within this court case that she was managing this at the time with exercise, some meditation, and talk therapy. And specifically, she started doing this during Dawson's postpartum period. So, pretty normal for many women to experience like postpartum symptoms, but it really started to escalate after Callan's birth in 2022 when she started to experience symptoms of hypo hypomania, which is pretty much just like energetic, a lot of energy, a lot of thoughts about doing different things, a little more extreme than the typical day to day. She had debilitating anxiety, insomnia, and was only sleeping about 3 hours per night. And eventually, as time went on, she was hearing voices and also reported experiencing suicidal ideation. So, a lot of these symptoms revolve around bipolar, which, for those of you who don't know, is an illness where you're experiencing those extreme highs, extreme lows. So, that super motivated is kind of the best way I describe it, but it's about things that don't necessarily correlate. So you may think like, I'm going to go run a marathon today, even though it's like, well, you've never trained, you've never ran, that sort of thing. And also, again, experiencing those suicidal thoughts when you're super depressed. You may hear voices if it's super extreme. So that is kind of throughout that time period and throughout prior to the killing is what she was experiencing, which it's very hard, very sad, and we'll talk about more how this connects to the trial eventually, but it is something that it can go unnoticed or people don't necessarily want to talk about it because it is like no one likes to say, "Oh, I'm hearing voices," and look like they're crazy, even though it's sometimes just an illness.
Yeah. And it happens to a lot of people too.
It happens to a lot of people, and a lot of times this disorder can be undiagnosed. That's misdiagnosed. That's the word I'm looking for. Where someone might be like, "Oh, you have schizophrenia," then, even though sure it's similar symptoms, but it's not the same thing. So definitely, it is. It's a sad diagnosis to have, but it can be manageable if you have like a good support system and all those things.
Yeah.
But pretty much, she was not diagnosed with bipolar. She met with a specialist, and this particular specialist, who we'll talk about in this section of the trial, diagnosed her with generalized anxiety disorder. And she saw her from September to November of 2022. Lindsay Clancy was experiencing such poor symptoms and suicidal ideation. She addressed some concerns with her doctor about wanting to possibly go into an inpatient stay in December of 2022. A couple of things to really highlight too is her husband, Patrick, never reported receiving anything further than a generalized anxiety diagnosis, which is very odd to many people. On January 1st of 2023, she went to McLean Hospital inpatient program for experiencing severe depression, suicidal ideation, and apparently, let's keep this in mind, is one of the top programs in the country for mental health. And on top of that, she discharged after 5 days of being there. And during this time, she mentioned that she was prescribed dozens of medications. A lot of them were to help manage depression, but they were kind of all over the board. During December of 2022, so we're going back a little bit, Lindsay shared that she was going through kind of like a big spiral, is how she described it. And this was around, again, December 2022, after she started taking Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic medication, and a lot of times it is used to treat schizophrenia, bipolar, or depressive disorders. But during this time period, so it's about, let's say, a month before the murder, she experienced a lot of weight loss, deep depression, a lot of suicidal thoughts. In Patrick's court hearing, he mentioned that she discussed intrusive thoughts about hurting their children. So something was telling her to hurt them in some way, shape, or form. But she told Patrick she didn't need to be kept away from the children. She could manage it. She was aware of it, that sort of thing. And on top of that, prior to the killings, she reports that her treatment was not something that was super prevalent. It was very much kind of sparse, throwing a lot of different medications at her rather than, okay, let's talk about it. Let's really get what's going on, giving her that support that she needed, which
Yeah.
super, super sad to think about. And especially like this case is not a win if somebody goes off to prison or a mental institution. Three people were dead. Someone had a
Yeah.
mental illness,
Yeah.
possibly, and just it didn't end well in their favor, and they didn't get the support
No.
that they needed.
100%. That's what I was just going to say. It's like, it's so sad that maybe this could have been prevented if she gotten the right treatment. And honestly, like, if she, we'll talk about if we think she did it or not, also.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I feel like it could have been prevented, or honestly, just for like her well being. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just really sad that she did not get the support that someone should get when they're going through what she was.
Yeah, and of course, like sometimes things happen and we can't
Right,
predict behaviors and all those things.
right.
But it does sound like there were many areas where the medical system could have maybe put in a little bit more effort. And when we talk about the people she worked with too, it doesn't really make sense why she worked with them.
Yeah.
And I do think that it was kind of a combo right now of who knows, right? Who knows what was happening because no one can see it. It is based off of testimony and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
it is very sad when you read like, oh, this is what she was experiencing and there was just no real support of anything.
Right. And for Boston, Massachusetts in general, having some of the best hospitals and medical stuff, like, it is just sad that they failed someone. So I can only imagine how many other states, countries, everything like that, how many people have not had something big like this happen in the like media. So we don't know, but it's just hard that people get failed in that type of way.
For sure, and it does bring up a question of, well, things like this do happen and people commit crimes because they're experiencing like a mental health crisis, or even people who are homeless. You could think about that too, who are sitting there doing drugs, all these things because they aren't getting maybe the support they need, and
Yeah.
it does open up a conversation of what does the mental health. And I definitely have seen since researching this a lot of people be like, okay, uh medical field, specifically mental health, looking at how someone does their notes, how do they monitor
Yeah.
things, like
Yeah.
where it is opening up for that conversation of how can we change the medical system, which is a positive that's coming out of this, but who
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah. It's it is a positive that's coming out of it, which is hard that such negative things had happened to now have a positive, but hopefully that's at least lessening the chances for other people to not be
Yeah.
get the right treatment.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, kind of continuing on, we're going to talk about leading up to the crime in 2023, and then we'll kind of also talk about now what we've learned more about in 2026 with the trial going on. So leading up to it, January 7th, we know that she threw a birthday party for their daughter, or they both did. January 8th, they went to a museum. January 15th, they went to the Cape for a little like vacation, and she was said to be that she seemed better, more active. She was able to like partake in more things. January 16th, Patrick and Cora went skiing, and the other kids were left with Lindsay. There were no issues that were reported, and she was definitely struggling, but doing a lot better than they had seen previously.
Yeah, so no concerns there. And we go to the day of the crime. So on January 24th, the morning was described to be normal. They took their daughter to the doctor's office, and Patrick reported that she was having one of her best days, acting normal, engaging in things, that sort of thing. At 4:50 p.m., Lindsay asked if he wanted to do takeout for dinner because she said she didn't feel like she wanted to, just it wasn't having a good day or was a long day. And he told the court that, well, he said that he told his children and Lindsay he would be right back, and reported she was acting normal, holding one of their children when he left. At 5:15, Patrick left to pick up meds at CVS and then went to get the takeout from the restaurant. And then at 6:09, he returned, which was about less than an hour later. He ended up going in the house. He went upstairs and found out that the bedroom door was locked, and he kind of noticed something was wrong. He eventually got inside, and he found blood all over their bedroom and an open window, and he looked out the window and saw Lindsay laying face up in the backyard and saw deep cuts on her wrists and a wound around her neck, which did end up leaving her paralyzed, but he doesn't know that yet. So he called 911 and was kind of trying to be like, where are the kids, where are the kids? And she was apparently coherent, but in trial reports,
We'll talk about more of that later.
we'll talk about that. But he called 911 and he went to go look for the kids. And while he's on the phone with the operator, he went to the basement and stated she killed the effing kids. On January 28th, so this is 4 days after the killings, he wrote a statement on a GoFundMe, which I don't know what the GoFundMe was for. I have a feeling it was maybe for like the memorial service or something. I don't know. But he said, and this is a direct quote, I want to ask all of you that you find it deep within yourselves to forgive Lindsay as I have. Our marriage was wonderful and grew stronger as her condition rapidly worsened. I took as much pride in being her husband as I did in being a father and felt persistently lucky to have her in my life. I promise I'll put all my energy into healing and rediscovering my purpose. So he said that 4 days after. And then a week after the killings, Lindsay was taken to a hospital prior to the killings, or right after. So about a week later, Lindsay called him from the hospital, and this is also a quote from him, and he claims that she didn't talk about her kids. She talked about she went through. He also said when he was testifying that she said she heard a man's voice telling her if she didn't do it now, she would lose her chance or something like that. So he claims that this is the first time that she ever reported hearing voices. That's a little up in the air, but I have a few thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, the crime itself is very sad.
Yeah.
It is weird to me, their dynamic after the killings, and especially the GoFundMe statement is a little weird because
4 days after, he's like, I forgive her.
Days. And not saying that you can't, but
4 days.
like, if my husband killed my children, there is absolutely no way you would see me writing a GoFundMe page about how I forgive them and I need to move on and move forward. I would not at all do that.
No. And if I were to, it would not be 4 days later. It would be like years later after, like, being so angry.
Yeah, it would take a lot for me to write that.
Right.
The talking in the hospital I find normal. It just is also weird because, like, in my head, I'm also sitting here about how he's talking so wonderfully about his wife and how this was an accident and all these things, but then he did end up divorcing her, I believe. I believe they're not married anymore.
Yeah, he has a new wife, which I'll talk about in, like, a second.
Yeah. And this
was very strange.
It's very, very, very weird. And I also, the one part of this where a lot of people I've seen on the internet say this is how he said she killed the effing kids rather than being like she effing killed the kids. Like, it comes off in a way that is like,
the wording may not seem like a lot, but, like, when you're in the moment and you can't, like, think about it, it's like, it seems I don't know how to word it. It's weird.
Well, it just is, again, your wife, you come home and she killed your children. You're just like, hey,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. It's bizarre. It's very sad. The crime itself is very sad. And again, she jumped out the window, a thing to highlight because she wanted to kill herself,
yeah,
is what, according to reports, is
yeah,
the thing. But I don't know. I feel very stuck where I'm like, okay, that could all make sense. But then the things afterwards are where it just gets a little bizarre and the husband's behavior is just weird.
yeah. I'm going to talk about a little of an updated timeline as of last week. So we're filming this on the 16th. So this is about a week before we're actually going to put it out. So there may be new stuff coming out in between. So last week, August 10th, I do want to start by saying the 2023 happenings definitely were focused just on her mental health, while now I feel like it's the mental health plus who did it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also kind of something I want to highlight. So this is definitely more focused on who did it, I feel like, plus the timeline. So, like Megan said, there was like a doctor's appointment for her daughter, and there was another one that Lindsay scheduled for the next day because of some like stomach issue, which is why Patrick went to CVS. Lindsay called CVS to confirm that they had these meds, and then at 5:15, she sent him a photo of the meds to get from CVS. So at about 5:32, he says that he went into the CVS and he called Lindsay for 14 seconds to ask about which medication was right to pick up. He says that she was very quiet and thought nothing of it because it was bath time. Which, if you've ever given children a bath time is not quiet one little bit. Like, that is like the craziest part of the night.
Mm-hmm.
So she said it was bath time, or he said it was, oh, she was quiet because it was bath time. Other testimony says that the kids were on the couch eating chicken nuggets in their pajamas when he left to go to CVS. Also, who puts their children in pajamas before the bath? Like, normally it'd be opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, he was seen to have boots on his feet going into CVS. Okay, keep the boots in mind. CVS was, they said, like a 3 to 4 minute drive from their house. So getting there at like 5:30, now he was going at 5:54 to get takeout from 3V. I guess that's a place in Duxbury. Mm-hmm. From video footage, you could see that he had sneakers on in this footage going into the takeout place. At 6:05, he got home and he said that both cars were in the driveway, so he knew she was home. He took off his boots, so he now has changed his shoes once again. He walked inside, called out to the family. He said he checked the basement and got no answer, and then he went to the bedroom, which, like Megan said, the door was locked. He saw blood in the window open, and she was laying outside. So this already is like a little different from what they thought happened back in 2023. Mm-hmm. Most of it is the same, tiny bit different. Basically, he looks out the window, like Megan said. First, he told, like, the people in the court that she was, like, nonverbal and, like, kind of unconscious to begin with. So when he says that he called out through the window to ask her where the kids were, and she said that they were in the basement and she tried to hurt herself, how can you, like, be nonverbal / like, not fully unconscious, obviously, but, like, how can she tell him that the kids are in the basement type of thing?
And also, so many other people have testified, like cops and doctors, and said that when she came in or when they were trying to get her help, she was not verbal.
Correct.
You couldn't even communicate, like, really who she was. It was really just, like, mumbled sounds. So that makes no sense. Also, I don't know about you, but even the way of being like, oh, I killed my kid, or I killed the kids and then tried to jump out the room to kill myself, like, that doesn't seem like something I would communicate necessarily. Yeah. I probably would be freaking out, and I'd be like...
Well, especially because which he didn't know at the time, but she was paralyzed. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I feel like I don't know.
There's just
I feel like I would not, that
that
would not be the first thing that I would be
little
saying.
sketch.
Right. Okay, moving on. 6:11 p.m. So this was about 10 minutes-ish, 8 minutes after he got home. He called 911 and he said that there were Wi-Fi issues, which delayed his call.
Okay, sure. My phone doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah, okay. And he says that he didn't check on the kids or the basement yet to the 911 operator. He also told them that he didn't think that she was home because he couldn't see her car in the driveway, even though he just said that he knew she was home because he saw both cars. We're going to go back a tiny bit. 5:24, an email was sent from his email account from the basement computer. He claims that he didn't know if it came from his laptop or his phone. He used the computer in the basement. Oh, the Wi-Fi was out? No, because you sent an email from your computer. And, like, anyways, there's a lot of inconsistencies here. So, back to when the 911, or the first responders came. She was unresponsive outside with just socks on, no shoes, according to the operator, or the responders. He says that he led them into the basement where the kids were found. 2, unfortunately, were dead on arrival, and 1 had a pretty weak heartbeat for about 3 days and then ended up passing away also. We found, well, not we, I didn't find anything, but they found that there was like a knife that was positioned in the basement in a way that a lefty would have done it, and Patrick was the lefty in the family. Another weird thing is the CVS bag that he brought back from CVS. The kids' dinner plates were on top of it and completely clean. No food on them at all. Weird, because they were said that when he left, they were eating dinner on the couch. Mm-hmm. No, they weren't. Okay, back to Lindsay. She was outside. It says that her body temperature was 82 degrees with no shoes on, outside in like the freezing cold. I don't believe it. There were shoe prints in the bedroom. He claims he didn't go in there. Clearly he did, because she had no shoes on. We don't know why he changed his shoes mid.
Also, didn't he go into the bedroom to check and see, and he looked out the window and saw her?
Exactly. So there's so many inconsistencies here, and it just, like, some videos that I watch of him on the stand, like, he clearly is trying to remember his lie. I don't know. He's either not good at, I don't know. Anyways, he scares me. So yeah, he claims he never went in the bedroom, but that's also how he found her, so I don't know, it's very strange. There also was like an Apple Watch inside of one of the bedside tables, nightstands, that like tracked movement, which the drawer held empty medicine bottles, and she and he both claimed that they were like asleep when the movement like occurred. So I don't know, everything's like a little bit,
it just looked like it doesn't off.
Yeah, and it just like, it's like crossing paths, all of it doesn't make sense. So unfortunately the kids were strangled with like exercise bands, which is just horrible. But they said that no fingerprints were found on the exercise bands or the knife. According to both Lindsay and Patrick used all of the exercise bands that were in the basement and the ones that were used, while Lindsay used like one of them for her exercising, but he used like all of them. Mm-hmm. This is where, if you can, go look up a picture of his new girl, because they are identical to each other. It's so freaky.
Here,
so 4 months later,
my phone so we can show.
Yes, please do. 4 months after this, Patrick started dating this woman and moved to New York, where he actually continuously traveled to New York before this. Definitely seems a little weird timing wise. Definitely seems like, show them.
Here's Lindsay.
Yeah. Like, why do they have the same exact face?
They're literally...
It's weird.
Hers?
I know. So, he ended up moving to New York with her. Definitely seems like a fair behavior, in my opinion, because what do you mean 4 months after...
Your entire family is, like, gone, pretty much.
Your 3 children were just killed, and your wife is paralyzed, and you're moving to New York with your new girl. Anyways, they're identical. He moved on quite fast, which is why I think there was definitely some overlap there, because he would like travel to New York a lot for work. Also, my thoughts are, what if he did it and he was like kind of thinking, oh, all 4 of them would pass away, so like he wasn't really thinking about like the lives or the consequences. Another few small things, and then we're gonna stop and talk about all of this because it's crazy, is when she was in the hospital, she actually wanted him to be taken off of her healthcare proxy, and like she did not want him to be in charge of any of her medical decisions, which is something else that is kind of crazy. And there was a Google search on her phone of like, where is the carotid artery, which carotid was spelled wrong. She's a nurse. She would know where it is and how to spell it. So I feel like she definitely did not make that search. Anyways, that was a lot of information. There's so much
more
here.
There's even more where it's like,
yeah. And this was taken.
We'll talk about this too. There's more and things, but just is like, none of this is normal. The only argument I have to all this is like, if he did it, wouldn't Lindsay be arguing like, no, I did not kill our children? Like,
well, I'm wondering if she was in some type of like moment where she just like doesn't remember, like something mental health wise, where she like so truly doesn't know. Yeah. Which there's also a video of her in court like absolutely sobbing,
bawling when they're talking about like children.
I feel like you can't fake that type of cry. Like that is like from deep in. I don't know. My theory is that he did it and tried to kill her also. She survived, and I think she just may not fully remember. Because that was what I was wondering too. I'm like, did they do it together, which is why she's not being like
forthcoming?
You did it, or I don't know. It's very
bizarre.
Strange. Yeah. I do think for sure that if she did do it, she clearly was like really struggling mentally. I don't think it was something that she like pre-planned.
I think it needs to be, what would be interesting is seeing her on the stand, which I know is not something they do in these murder cases, but her talking about what was going on beforehand.
Yeah.
So obviously Emily went through some wonderful points about how Mr. Patrick might be involved and the theory about that. A couple of things just to note as well. So this stuff I researched yesterday, so a little bit more of like things that have come out. So a lot of people with this trial, like really the argument is with the prosecution is that Lindsay faked her suicide attempt, and she had allegedly been planning to strangle or kill her 3 children for like weeks. Kind of the idea. A lot of people where this is concerned made points about more internet searches that were found, but some of them have argued that Patrick made these searches. So there's a couple where it was about suicide methods, searching for psychiatric meds, detox programs, searching about what is mania, what is ketamine therapy, and like, can a psychiatrist overprescribe meds? So those were all on the family computer. So we don't really know who did it, but they are arguing that Lindsay Googled this stuff, which also some of this wouldn't make sense, because if you think about it, like, she was a nurse, so she should know some psychiatric meds, know what ketamine therapy is. The overprescribing meds, I could see someone just wanting to Google and be like, is that a thing?
Yeah.
But apparently 4 days before the killing, on Clancy's phone, there was also a Google search for, can you treat a sociopath? Again, we don't know if this was her or not. It was on her phone, but that's just a very odd question to Google. So more so the defense is arguing that she did do it, but it was mental health crisis, where the other side is arguing that she premeditated these murders. But right now, again, like you said, the trial is definitely going in the direction of like, did she really do it? Like, there are things here that don't make sense.
Yeah. And I do think, like I said, and like you just said, the 2023 one was definitely like not who killed the children, but it was, they originally thought it was 100% Lindsay based on what they found, and it was more so her mental state and like if they were planned or not. And like I said, now it's definitely talking about that, but they're putting in these little like pieces where it's then gonna shift to like,
Yeah.
I feel like they just keep throwing a little pieces of Patrick and like other stories in to then be able to shift it to that later. So yeah, at the end of January, she was charged with homicide and strangulation, January of 2023. And on February 7th of 2023, in the arraignment that they had, they presented more theories, kind of just saying like, oh, she created this opportunity to be alone with the kids by sending him out of the house. She killed them, then tried to kill herself, like Megan said, kind of with the searches. In like her defense in this trial already said that she had severe postpartum, like mental illness, psychosis struggles, and that was an argument started in 2023 anyways. And like we said, she did tell the psychologist that she heard male voices telling them to kill her children and herself. So that was kind of just a little, we already kind of talked about that, but it is
Super important to know.
super important, and it also definitely doesn't really line up with what Patrick has been saying about like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, you have been knowing that.
Yeah.
So
So
anyways,
a couple of the final like psych aspects to talk about, and these are
yeah,
two individuals who worked with her more so on her medication. So we have
yeah,
Rebecca Jol Gelata Jolota. Some
yeah, I don't know.
She was a psychiatric nurse practitioner at South Shore Health perinatal behavioral health programs. So again, really focusing on pregnant women, postpartum women, that sort of thing. She testified recently that she exchanged messages with Clancy regularly through a patient portal from late November to December of 2022. A lot of those messages revolved around sleep, depressive symptoms, medications, and there are reports that she Clancy was not taking full dosages of medications and she wanted to reduce dosages or changing her prescription and was talking about being worried about becoming an addict. One
Mm-hmm.
thing to truly note with this individual is that Rebecca never talked to her psychiatrist and just made these decisions, which is super, super, super important when you're working with medications.
Yeah.
She did report that she was experiencing suicidal thoughts starting in mid December. And again, like I said at the beginning, called and reported intrusive thoughts of suicide, worried about needing a higher level of care. She was given these antipsychotics and Rebecca reported that she thought it would be helpful for her to stay for additional groups and medication changes, but Clancy declined to do that.
Yeah.
So a little bit of just a weird relationship there with this particular nurse practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Dr. Jennifer Tufts, who has been really big recently within this trial.
She's been getting destroyed.
Yeah, it's been really, really bad. So a little bit of background about her is that she graduated from University of Vermont Medical School in 2018. Her residency was in Boston University's Boston Medical Center until 2022. She then, after she passed her residency and kind of was independent, she went to Astor Mental Health in August of 2022. She reported that she worked with postpartum psychosis, and this was a big thing because she said in the span of a month, she would say she hadn't really worked with any because it's such a rare disorder, which isn't necessarily true. It's common, but it's also not super common. So it's not something that doesn't exist. He also talked about, when asked about postpartum depression, which was a big part of Lindsay's case, was that she said, I don't know, maybe a couple, but I've treated many of them in my residency, which was just immediately before. So she reported through Astor Mental Health that she worked with postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, and
This is why you shouldn't lie on your
Come to
resumes.
find out that she didn't work with many postpartum or psychotic patients, so she was engaging in like false advertising, which is a big no-no in mental health. She was the psychiatrist again who started treating her before the murders.
Mhm.
She started with her September 2022, 4 months after the birth of their third child, and treated until the murders. And she, again, throughout this trial, just argued that they talked about sleep and anxiety, really said that Lindsay was the one who was apprehensive about taking medications. They were constantly changing stuff. And she did disclose to Dr. Tufts that she was experiencing intrusive thoughts of suicide in December of 2022.
Mhm.
But again, with this woman, if you hear her talk about their sessions and the notes she wrote in particular, they make no sense. She
Yeah.
lied about who she worked with, and it really has opened up a big hole because it's like the girl was just prescribing her meds and just whatever, have a good
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. I do feel bad for her, even though she did a lot of wrong things, because she just started working and she is screwed over. Like, she is never going to be able to.
Well, she's never going to come back from this. And I
No.
mean, either way, I would not trust a psychiatrist at this point in time who all of the notes and everything that they've talked about is pretty much being used against her. And
Right.
big thing that I don't think a lot of therapists talk about or psychiatrists is that the goal with your notes and how you take care of the client is for the best interest. And you even put situations like this where, God forbid, you get subpoenaed, all your notes come out like this. It's supposed to help your client. It's not supposed to make them look worse. And that's
Right.
exactly what's happening, is that she just didn't do anything and continued and continued and continued to be like, I'm not getting the help I need. And she lied.
Yeah.
She barely worked with psychotic patients or postpartum patients. Like, that's crazy.
I know. I yeah. I there's so there's so much information. Like, it is really, it makes you think like, oh, I mean, you went to school for this. Well, not this specifically, but like,
Pretty much.
they teach
Yeah.
you how to do the notes. They teach you what you just said, to be like, oh, like, this is what you should do on them, whatever. So I mean, she's
The,
just starting out. It's not like she's like 30 years into it and she's kind of like giving up. Like, you're just beginning this. Like, you should be
you
on
should
your top
not-
game.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like the residency thing, sure, like you can say you've worked with these people before, but it's like you can't advertise that it's your specialty. Like, I don't
Right.
think people understand in her bio about like, oh, here's who I work with. She says she specializes in working with postpartum and psychotic individuals. And it's like, well, no, you
Yeah.
don't. You can say you've worked with them before, but do not say like,
Right.
oh, I specialize with this disorder.
No, you don't, because you've, let me see what she said. I would say none. She's worked with none in the span of a month, and I don't know, maybe a couple. No,
Yet
I
she
wouldn't say that you're specializing in that if you've worked with maybe a couple in total.
I just it's
And like you said, it's not a super, super rare thing. Like, so many people have postpartum depression. A lot of them have postpartum psychosis. Obviously, not as
well,
prevalent as postpartum depression, but like, that's not like a super rare thing.
I know like with postpartum, and I hope it's becoming a slightly bigger thing. It's very
Yeah,
underdeveloped, and especially
yeah,
in the mental health field, because a lot of times it's like parents don't know what to do, and especially the moms, in a lot of ways they have to take care of their babies, right? They're expected to do that and not to focus on themselves. So it's something that's not talked about enough, but the fact that this happened, and
hmm,
it's like she did seek help and support,
right,
and then
right.
this woman kind of took advantage of that, and God forbid, how much was she paying? I
I
would
know.
love to know, because psychiatrists make so much money. It just is so sad. And of course, like,
She was so failed.
yeah, and it is hard because it is like three babies are dead, and again, Patrick is a whole other conversation on whether or not he was involved,
Yeah,
but it just is like the system, and she seems like she has no sympathy at all in the court trials, if you've
Yeah.
seen any clips where she's just like, whatever. Like, she does not give off, oh my God, like, I'm screwing over.
Not remorseful or
No,
anything.
it's just like, oh yeah, whatever. And it just is so sad to see.
I know. Ugh, this is so crazy. This whole thing. There's so many like levels to it where it's like obviously she was struggling like mental health wise, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But then that even leads to other questions of like, okay, did she do it? Did he do it? Like there's so many different levels and I'm really interested to see over the next few weeks, months, however long this goes, to like kind of check in every week to be like, okay, what has happened, what new information, what has been changed, all of that, because
Yeah,
it is
and we'll definitely
wild.
continue to do that because this is new. It's happening here now, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like, why not? It's something that's very important for not only listeners now, but future listeners to hear about and talk about.
right,
Opens up conversations. So it just is.
right.
Of course, I hate ending on these poor notes, but I'm
I know.
hoping that there's at least somewhat of some sort of justice in this case, whether it just be like things change or Patrick goes to jail or
Yeah.
Lindsay gets them.
Or even like some new resident people, therapists, whatever. I hope they at least are like, oh, like I should be taking my notes better. Or I hope that someone learned something out of this.
Yeah.
But this is already a very long episode, and obviously we're not doing frequently asked questions for this just because of how in depth, crazy this already is, and a lot of the ones that we've researched, we already answered in depth. So none of those today, but feel free to comment any if you have any questions, and we'll happily answer them.
Yes.
And like we've said a few times now, this is what we know happened in 2023, and now they're kind of reviewing and talking about if that actually really did happen now. And so, like we said, we'll kind of continue to update through our next few episodes or however long the case or court goes for.
Mm-hmm.
And any new information and all of that we will share at the end of the next however many episodes that we film.
Yes, and please, as always, subscribe to our YouTube, our Spotify, our TikTok.
Yeah.
Leave suggestions on who you want us to talk about outside of the Lindsay Clancy case. And yeah, hopefully you have enjoyed us rambling about how the world is not fun sometimes.
Yes.
And yeah, hope you guys just enjoy us talking about the first couple of updates of this case.
Yes, thank you guys for listening, and thanks for staying this long. If you have, we appreciate it.
But it's long, but
we told you it'd be a long one.
yeah, but at least we're getting it now, and now you're just gonna hear little updates, and you can move
Yes.
on with your episode if you're like, yeah, no, I don't need an update. But if you want to hear, now you'll know.
Yes, thanks for listening and watching. We love you all. Thanks for watching for 20 whole episodes.
Yes, we're almost on to 30.
We love you guys.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.